by the brutality of the police. And we had a movement that was coordinated online and that dovetailed into offline movements that saw youth carry placards, burn cars, and kill people. So it's my pleasure to once again, 3 years down the line, to welcome all of us to this roundtable discussion. The roundtable discussion was organized as part of the project seminar for a course taught by Professor Panos Campasaris. I hope I got that right. Yeah, so without wasting much of our time, we'll start because time is not on our side at all. Let me quickly do the introductions, and I'm going to start from the project, the class instructor, the facilitator, Professor Panos Campasaris. It's my pleasure to welcome you. Good evening, Prof. from Nigeria.
Hello. Nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. You're welcome. I also welcome Associate Professor Abdurazak Adisa. Is an Associate Prof in the Department of Mass Communication, University of Ilorin, Kwara State, Nigeria. Professor Adisa, my pleasure to welcome you here. He's right here with us, but I think he has himself muted. Yes, we also have from Fountain University in Osogbo, Southwest Nigeria, Associate Professor O.F. Leadi is the Dean College of Management and Social Sciences at Fountain University, as well as an Associate Prof in the Department of Sociology, Fountain University, Osogbo. You are welcome, Dr. Leadi. And of
Thank
course,
you for
I
having
can
me.
also see our development consultant and expert, Mr. Dari Adeoye, is a social development expert and evaluator par excellence. So you are welcome to this program. My pleasure to welcome you. And of course, the lead discussant has joined us all the way from Spain, Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, the lead discussant, Silas Udenze. My pleasure to welcome you. Yeah, and I'll be introducing others as they are joining us all across the world. Without wasting much of our time, I've done the introduction. I've said we are focusing on visual economy of Nigeria's ENDSARS protests. And therefore, we will take two things from the student organizing this project seminar, and that is Mr. Mutiu Inyoda Lasisi. I'm using that opportunity to introduce him and to as well tell us that he is behind the project. So he'll quickly come on now and talk to us about the rationale behind the project, as well as making a presentation of the essay, Visual Economy of Nigeria's ENDSARS Protest, the Double Edge of Brutality. So it's my pleasure to bring on Mutiu Inyoda Lasisi to quickly do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I also thank all the invited guests that's actually made it today. And I want to start by sharing my screen and give us the rationale behind the today's discussions. I hope everyone can see my screen. Hello?
Not yet. We can only see you, not your screen.
Okay. I think it's coming up gradually.
We can't see the screen yet.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
No. No. What?
Not yet.
Okay, maybe let me reshare again. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, it has come up.
Okay, the first slide, I think. Can you share the first slide, the picture economy of Nigerian state SARS protest?
Yes, yes.
Good. So once again, I welcome you all to this roundtable discussions. And as the moderator said, the focus of the project is on future economy. And this idea is realized based on the course taught by Professor Panel. And I wanted to also say that I chose this particular area for my project because of my interest in looking at the visual economy in terms of commodification of agonies, modification of pains of others, as written by many scholars in the field of critical media studies. For today, I have compiled a number of pictures from the protests that happened in Nigeria in 2020. And I wanted to say that we also need to look at the two edges of this brutality that the public said they want to end in Nigeria, because they are trying to say that it is only the police that actually brutalize the people in Nigerian system. But I felt that through the visual economy, we can see more than what the public or the protesters they actually did during their movement. So I'm starting from this particular photograph where we have the starting point of the brutality. In Nigeria, it is not strange to many people that police will brutalize people, and they will also go away with it because there is no legal system that actually punish them for that. So in these pictures now, we can see that the people that we expect to be protecting the citizens, that is, they sign social contracts with the people in society. They are the one also brutalizing the same set of people in society. So this call for a kind of discussion that we need to be having. You can see in these next pictures now, this person in picture is showing us the list of the people who have been actually murdered by the SARS, the unit of the Nigerian police. And it's showing us that there is no way we don't want to continue with the brutality of the police, having a number of people being killed without any prosecution from the government. And so this also showed extent to which the communication of the visuals is telling us like the people are demonstrating, those people who have been murdered. And in the course of this person that holds this particular placard showing the murdered people, we have to look at the pains of the people who have actually died in the hands of this Nigerian police. And from these pictures now, we can see somebody who is crying for justice, demonstrating the kind of the way the police brutalize Nigerian citizens. And this is showing us that there is the need for us to call for accountability with the Nigerian police in the course of their duties. And we can also see that in this picture now, the people who protested, they turned the arena of the protest to something looking like calligraphy, showing a kind of revolutions wanted to have Nigerian systems. They demonstrated that, look, beyond the oral discussion of the ENDSARS, we can also demonstrate by using our body, create artistic nature for people to understand what we are trying to demand for. This is what this picture is telling us. And this is another picture which shows that somebody is meeting the helps of the others. And in this kind of environment, you can see that the photographers of this particular picture try to tell us that these people are helping the person in need, which means that they share the pains of the person in this context. And the kind of the pain they are sharing here is that to support the person to survive the brutality the person received from the police. And we can see from this another picture that the protesters, they are telling the Nigerian police and Nigerian government that working on digital platforms, earning monthly or yearly, is not a crime. That the Nigerian police, especially the units that are responsible for the brutalities, in most cases should not continue to do what they are doing for now. So in this picture now, the photographers who took this picture is telling us how the people are trying to tell the authority that they have the right to do what they are doing. And in the context of doing this, the photographer has commodified the people's ideologies in these particular pictures. And you can also see this another picture which shows the destruction of the Nigerian police stations, and which means that in the location where things like this happen, you can discover that the next few minutes or months or whatever, the people will be in a state of high insecurity. And in this context now, we are not looking at the brutality, the pace of the orders in this context, which means that we cannot continue to see the people destroying our property and start taking photographs. Taking photographs means that we are not morally ready to support the system in order not to make the structure like this destroyed. So we also have these pictures from the photographers of the media that I covered. In a way, they are trying to tell us in these pictures that, look, in the midst of the struggle, you can still have a kind of entertainment. You can still have a kind of entertainment in the way that we need to see the kind of the accountability you are calling for. So we see the picture here as a way of showing the kind of the mix of the sorrow and agony, together for people to understand the kind of thing they expect of the government. And from this picture, which actually shows the scene where a woman pick up the part of some Nigerian police killed through the fire their body, and the person hit the part of these people. As some people also reported that the women in the pictures used their body for ritual purpose. In this context now, the photographer who took the picture of the people who are burning these people doesn't actually see the pains of these people who are being burnt. So in this context now, we are using our camera to capture the scene without looking at the pains of the others, as stated in many literature and empirical analysis. And from this particular picture I'm showing here, see the people running away from the brutality of the Nigerian police in the context of the protest. It also shows that in the midst of the protest, the idea of brutality continues. Who are looking for safety in a way. And in this arena, we can say that the photographers is trying to balance the situation by showing us how people are looking for their own personal safety. But at the same time, if you look at the future economic aspect of this, the person who took the photograph doesn't actually have the intention of saying he wanted to protect them, to show the public, in order to catch more value from what the people are going to meet in the media. So we have this another picture from the protest, which shows the level at which some mothers came out, telling the government, telling the Nigerian police that, look, we cannot continue to be brutalizing our children. But this kind of the women, they don't realize that some of the Nigerian police who were killed by the protesters, they also have family members. So the question now is that what happened to the case of those other people? So in this particular pictures I'm showing here now, we see the kind of situation whereby the Nigerian police did drag one of the protesters during the protest, and the person is trying for justice. And in this context now, there's nobody that can help him. So it means that we use our camera to capture the pains of others without looking at how can we save the person from the agonies or this difficulty he is passing through. So now, another pictures from the protest shows another moment where the people are just looking at the person being brutalized by the Nigerian police. And the photographer of this particular pictures took the picture too, just to catch the attention of the public, just to make sure that his medium is making money from the people who are actually going to read the story or visualizing the picture in a way. Now we have this one, shows that this is a dialogue in the midst of the tensions, which means that in the course of the protest, people are still looking at the way of finding solutions. How can we solve the problem we have at hand? And it shows that the police officers are likely to collaborate with the protester. But at the same time, we look at the past pictures, especially where they were killed, it showed a kind of the society that we have. which means we are not going to say the police is the only one who brutalize us. So all of us are in this particular problem together. So the question now is that how do we solve these issues in a situation like this, in the age of the technology, especially emerging technology? How do we solve the problem? How do we understand the way of identifying the pains of others? This is part of the question I want us to discuss today and share our experience and share the history of the protest across the global south in a way. And in most cases, it is possible for us to look at what has happened in the global north. Can we find a kind of a learning experience from the global north on how they handle visual economy of protest in a way? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Spot on. In the course of the presentation, we had a couple of people also join the conversation. We had Mr. Abidin Olasupo, the Global Director of BBYDI. I welcome you to the program. We also had Facilisara Milva, Zhang, and Pepper joining the call. You are all welcome. And of course, Alam Shazada, you are all welcome. Now, to the meat of the discussion. It's a roundtable, and we are trying to understand the protests, especially from the angle of photographic coverage. We've seen photos that have brought us down the memory lane concerning the ENDSARS protest. And so I'm going to call on the lead discussant in 3 minutes to give us an overview of his thoughts on the presentation. So I'm calling on Mr. Silas Udenze to please take on the mic.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Sure, we
Yes.
can.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite, Mutiu, and thank you for the other people that are here. I can see some of my former students, Valisa and the likes. It was a great deal talking to them while we had the course, Digital Media and the Culture of the Global South. Well, it's a very good presentation. I would like to talk about the presentation first from an insider perspective, the ENDSARS. Coincidentally, I was part of a process of the ENDSARS in 2020 in Abuja before I traveled for my PhD in Spain. And from what my friend and brother Mutiu has presented, I think the ENDSARS is not dead in the way that I believe through visuals, like he presented, there is still some level of protest still going on, because we could see that most of the images from the ENDSARS, we can still see them from the social media, from the digital media. To put the digital media or the social media or the internet, it's bottomless. Particularly, my project also explores ENDSARS from the theoretical perspective of memory studies. I've got my PhD in media and communication, but my PhD is actually very interdisciplinary, because currently I'm at the Center for Digital Anthropology, University College London. And talking about movement and protest, ENDSARS in particular, like Mutiu has presented, my own take on the work he has proposed is very, very simple. Visuals, of course, hold a very important place, even in protest. There are a lot of literatures that have delved into visuals and social movement, and particularly even in ENDSARS. I can equally send you some literature on that. But one thing I want us to get clear, and one thing I want him to get clear also in terms of, particularly in terms of the topic, predominantly, it should be particularly about visual, because I believe it should be straightforward, because what I would like to ask is that when we say visual economy, what do we mean? That is the question I have for the presenter. Visual economy, what do we mean? But when you talk about images from the ENDSARS, it is straightforward, and you make your presentation drawing about these images and looking at them. Even if you intend to study them critically, you can collect as so many images as you want to collect to study, but you can also get your questions from the images, in the sense like some of the images you shared were so strong, very strong images that portrays both the police, the Nigerian situation, and the protesters. For instance, in my study, I have more than 100 images from the ENDSARS. And I study the ENDSARS from the lens of its anniversary also. But what I'm trying to establish here is that even if you're looking at these images solely, number shouldn't be a problem, because like they'll always ask sometime in quantitative research, how many images did you study to arrive at blah, blah, blah. It is none of our business in qualitative research. In as much as you're able to establish deep, thorough investigation, and your case study is very specific, it is the ENDSARS, it is in Nigeria, and you are able to dig deep and exhume rich qualitative information, what Malterud et al. Calls information power, you can use that to buttress your point. So I am very, very happy with the presentation, but like I said, what I want to see is that the title is, if it could be reshaped a bit, just visual images from the ENDSARS, and whatever you want to call it, you pick up from there. Because if you want to say visual economy, what does it mean? Because from my own stand, I cannot give you any meaning as how do I dovetail visual economy with the ENDSARS. So I think for now, that is the little I'll have to say. Maybe as we progress, I'll have to say a little more.
Yeah, thank you very much. And there are a lot of insights from the short overview you have given us. You've talked about digging into memories and what visual images could do to ensure that we didn't forget what Nigerians went through. Whether you are part of the police or you are just ordinary Nigerian on the street, all of us were traumatized at that period. Now, I'm going to call on Dr. Razak Adisa, an associate professor in the Department of Mass Communication, University of Ilorin. You've seen the images as being spoken to by Mr. Mutiu Inyada. What is your take as to how media can assist to document events and also tell us the lessons to be learned from the protest?
Okay. Thank you very much. And I would like to commend Mr. Mutiu Inyada for this wonderful, innovative area of research. It is innovative because researchers hardly want to go deeply into analyzing it. And as the last speaker said, I want us to look at the work from the title. Yes, well, when I saw economy, I was a little bit confused. I was trying to understand it from the perspective of political economy. I was trying to look at it from agenda setting, and I can only end up looking at it from politics and agenda setting. If we look at both sides, the government and the youth that responded in I think in October 2020, responding to the police brutality that have remained continuous in Nigeria. So both sides seem to be wanting to achieve one thing. And what is it? To gain the minds of the public with pictures. And if we remember, what eventually sparked the crisis of that ENDSARS that eventually led to violence was images that people saw about what happened at the toll gates. So up to today, we saw images, some of the images have been disputed properly, and some of the images have been confirmed, but most of the images really work as the youth wanted it to work then. So to me, police brutality have been a noteworthy issue, and even a newsworthy issue since that 2020 till now, because the special anti-robbery squad that these youth are protesting against have really gone beyond bounds in doing what they're supposed to do. So bringing back the memory through pictures, I think is a worthwhile activity on the side of Mr. Inoda. But I want you to look at the title again. The economy there, I think, are only coming if the objective of those images are mainly to make money, are mainly to achieve economic interest. But I see it more as a political interest, agenda setting, just to win the minds of the people. But all the same, those images are revelation that nobody can stop with the coming of social media. And it will continue to remain in the archive and on social media, and people will continue to have access to it. But I would like to say clearly, based on Dr. Rashid's question, that the role of media. Yes, media have significant role to play, but the problem with media is that they may not likely go the way of youth because of ownership interest. I don't know of any media in Nigeria today, maybe except our reporter, that may be ready to go all out and open whatever happens. Others, they are pain, they are handicapped, and they are incapacitated because of the challenges of ownership. But with new media, I think we can still have our way, the youth can still have their way, they can still reach the minds of people. So as we move on, answering those questions, maybe we'll be contributing more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for your contribution. I've been moving from one person in the academics to the other, from Mr. Udenze to Dr. Adisa. I'm going to call on the sociologist among us, Dr. O.F. Liadi. In the course of discussing this issue, Dr. Adisa made reference to social media and how the youth are able to use it to raise awareness, to organize the movement from online to offline. Would you say that the purpose of ENDSARS protest was achieved in 2020?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer of this program and also thank Mr. Inyoda Mutiu for inviting me. Well, straight to your question, that depends on which side of the coin one is looking at. To some people, at least ENDSARS have been able to create awareness as to the brutality of police or the Nigerian force, as well as the kind of response that governments that we've got in Nigeria, the kind of response they had to such movement. For me, I see ENDSARS protest as a great social movement that was truncated. The variables, the factors that necessitated the truncation may not be the basic reasons why we are here, but many of them are caused by the organizer of ENDSARS itself. I view ENDSARS as breakdown of norm, social norm in society, from the part of the government, because there are many agencies that got involved in the ENDSARS protests. There's the government, the protesters themselves, the police force as institution, the politician. Directly or involved. I see it generally as breakdown of norm. It was a state of normlessness in Nigeria during the time that this particular protest took place. But more importantly, I see it as a breakdown of trust between government and its citizens. Because what were the ENDSARS protesters asking for? Simple: to be treated right, to be seen as citizens in their own country, to be allowed to engage in their own without molestation. And I don't think this is much to ask for from citizens of a sovereign nation. However, a lot of things went on or got involved in the protests that did not allow the protest to totally, objectively achieve its aim. But in terms of bringing forth, showing to the world how government treats citizens in Nigeria, I would like to say that maybe it was achieved, and the power of virtual new technology was deployed in this instance. In the other aspect, in some of the demands of the protesters, no, because SARS, the actual, the main agency in this particular issue that we are talking about, is still in place in Nigeria. Even beyond that, police force are still maltreating, are still molesting individual citizens of Nigeria. So to that extent, I would say it. Some of their demands were can be said to have been achieved. One, because they succeeded in. I mean, there's a popular saying in Nigeria now, Sorosoke. Sorosoke means speak loud, let your voice be heard. The voiceless in the society, the youth in the society whose voices were muted, were not heard previously, were able to come out. And if you see the way people relate to youth today, you will see that a little bit can be said to have been achieved, because even the police people are being careful to relate or to engage the youth in the way they used to previously engage the youth. But by and large, I don't think they totally achieve what they set out to achieve, because at the end of the day, the government is still in denial mode as to the number of people that were killed as to whether anybody was even killed at all, as to whether justice will be done to those who lost their lives and property and the rest. Yeah, in Lagos State, for example, some things are being seen to have been to be done. Recently, I think the governor, there's this forum that was held with the governor and the rest, and a lot of things came out from that forum recently. But by and large, a lot of issues are still pending. They are still pending, untouched regarding the protests.
All right. Thank you very much for the contribution, historical and insightful. Mr. Dari Adeoye, you are a social development consultant, and you understand what it means for movement to happen. Now, you listen to what Dr. Oebliadi said concerning the ENDSARS. When we place it side by side with what was lost and the ground that was covered during the protests, in your own judgment, could you say the ENDSARS protest was successful in whatever ramification?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. It's nice being here. We're quite sorry. The battery to this phone is very low, so I have to make sure I please discuss this issue, appear here without my video. I hope I'm permitted.
Yes, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Going by the foundation that had been laid by other speakers before me, praising or acknowledging the fact that the ENDSARS movement was a social intervention that cut across the fabrics of the southern part of Nigeria in 2020. Actually, it was without much rhetoric. We have identified why it took place, but from the civil society point of view, there has been this uproar against police brutality from time to time, especially when they attack the younger generation. And this one has gotten to the extent of no one particularly checking that group, which in the Nigerian police, which is this anti-robbery squad, which we normally refer to as SARS. So at the beginning, it was seen like a child's play, but the seriousness took another dimension because the organizers of the ENDSARS protests saw it as the opportunity to fight for a right. Initially, it was the ENDSARS of a thing, but later on, they saw it as an opportunity to also vent their anger on the government that was in power and not really doing much. Yes, it has happened and it has happened, but they left their feet on the sand of time by making sure that they spoke with one voice. Although eventually some people had to come into their midst to disrupt what was supposed to be peaceful protests. But from the civil society group, which were part of the movement, we discovered that they are spoken with a voice, and the voice was as loud and clear for anybody that cares to listen to it, to see that the youths have been marginalized for a very long time in Nigeria. And the organizers also saw it as a means of voicing their dissatisfaction to the Nigerian government. And since it was quelled through the force of the government, every year the youth should come back to celebrate the success they have made. To me personally, it's a success that no politician saw it coming. In fact, people did not see it taking that dimension. So for the fact that they have been able to say something, they have been able to feel something and say something, and that is enough success story for us. You know, most of the time you cannot win this battle against a politician, but for the fact that the awareness created by the ENDSARS, it has given them the impetus to know that the youth are serious about what they want, the change they want. And reasonably, during the last presidential election, presidential and gubernatorial election, or general election in Nigeria, it was also seen that the ENDSARS protest or movement of 18 was not a ruse, after all, because the youth mobilized themselves. Some people believe that the movement was politically motivated, be it as it may, but they were able to mobilize themselves and be able to just tell everybody that they mobilize themselves to vote for a particular candidate. And from my own personal view, I feel that they have spoken and they needed to be taken serious. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Yes, the youth indeed spoke, and they have to be taken serious. Now, I'm going to Mr. Abidin Olashukmo. He's also in the civil society space. As Mr. Yoda was presenting, I was recalling that night on October 20 when we saw pictures also coming in, flying around on social media, claiming a certain number of people have been killed. To you, I'm sure that in the North Central, you would have been part of the ENDSARS protests. And we saw a lot of misinformation and disinformation coming in using pictures. And up until now, we are still unable to actually unravel what happened at the Lekki toll gate. So I want to ask Mr. Olashukmo, what is your opinion as far as the use of pictures to mobilize, to create interest and drive people to the streets is? Was it extensively effective?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that question, and I sincerely want to appreciate Mr. Mutinyoda for inviting me into this gathering as well. And this conversation could not have happened at a better time than now. And I'm super excited to see that even Dr. Silas had his PhD presentation on topics like this. It really shows, it's a topic of importance, especially to the academics, both within and outside Nigeria. I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of a young person as a youth. I will also be speaking from the perspective of the leader of a youth-led organization who was a part and parcel of the protest from day one till end. And of course, I will be speaking from the perspective of a leader who owns a fact-checking platform. So let's take it from the protest itself as well. And I sincerely want to give kudos to every speaker that has spoken on this. Either we like it or not, sincerely, the ENDSARS protest has opened up conversation to a whole lot of things. And one of the win we had on that protest was the fact that the protest never had like a normal organogram structure. When I say structure, oh fine, if you're asking inquiry who's the leader of the protest, nobody will show up to say I'm the one leading this protest. That was the reason why, we had a little bit of the success that we recorded. To my daddies who are on the call, governments are not always happy with protests. Even till date, if labor union threaten the government with protests, they have a way of getting back to make them get to the roundtable discussion to ensure that protest does not happen. It looks like the only language that the Nigerian government understands is a protest. So one of what led credence to the campaign to achieve the success it has achieved within that few days is because we never even had like a so-called leadership structure. Because other campaigns, the government will invite a leadership structure, give them money, give them houses, give them cars, then that will be the end of that campaign. Another thing is the fact that the Nigerian youthful population discover that we have the numbers. Nigerian is about, according to the numbers and the data has been shown around, we have over 200 million population assumption. Majority of this population are young persons. So for the very first time during the ENDSARS protest, the Nigerian youthful population believe they have the numbers. They have the competence. I call it the 3C. They have the competence, capacity, and character to push for a systemic change in a structure, that has been casting a pall of negative shadow on them. So another reason why I think, of course, it was a success was what Mr. Mutiu was doing. A lot of Nigerian youth use pictures. The authenticity of the picture is something we could bring into conversation. But an organization like ours use what we call the Google reverse image. Immediately you pull up a picture online, we pull it on Google reverse image. Google reverse image will tell you exactly where the picture was first used, how it was first used, and when it was used. So as a result, organization like ours was able to combat misinformation and disinformation related to it. But a lot of people who want to, use that opportunity to nail governments, leveraging on that as well, to create tension. Absolutely, it was. If I'm gonna be sincere with you, a lot of people are pulling up images of violence during elections, using it as ENDSARS protest to eat up the polity. Because it's like, for example, the youthful population are angry with a particular set of the government parastatals. Then the opposition sees it as a platform for them as well to re-engineer more young person in their own political party to know the same government. In the Yoruba parlance, it's like a person that they want to roast, and that person is using oil or petrol to rub his body structure, so that when you light matches on it, it will just blow. So that's just what the ENDSARS protest was used from the opposition view. So I want to quite agree with Dr. Rashid, who asked the question that, of course, there are some pictures that were used that were not really for the ENDSARS protest. But I can confirm to you that a lot of people, even in the diaspora, got interested in this campaign because of the kind of images they are seeing. Because, there's a way through which pictures communicate. Look at some of the pictures he had to share us, while he was making his presentation, especially the picture of that murder, the picture of the guy who was being dragged by the police, the picture of the communication going at the protest ground between the citizen and the police as well. Pictures tell a lot of story. It's a storytelling, tool in its own. So a lot of people in the diaspora got to join the protest. A lot of people who ordinarily, because of religious bias, would not join. I know the number of people because I joined the protest in Ilorin, and Ilorin is known for its religious stand. A lot of people who ordinarily would not want to join protests, but because, of course, they see pictures online that communicates to tell them this is what the Nigerian youth are witnessing before the Nigerian police. It motivated them to be a part of that story because, of course, they feel if we work together as one and we speak with one voice, of course, some of these challenges will be reduced. And not only that as well, if we want to measure the success of the campaign, we measure it from the perspective of a lot of things that has happened after that. For the first time, more young people are getting appointed into office, more young people are getting at the policy decision-making table, more young people are forming part of, conversation on issues that relate to the development of our country. And not only that as well, during the last general election, if we look at the data from INEC, we witnessed a burgeoning increase in the number of young people who are to register to vote for the first time in the history of the country as well. So conversations are happening on Twitter almost every day on issues around youth development. So the ENDSARS process even opened up eyes. And particularly, even donor organizations are funding now. There was a particular fund that came up as a result of, the ENDSARS protest. They call it the Nigerian Youth Futures Fund, the NYFF Fund. If you look at the history or the story, which is funded by Ford and Mercator Foundation, the Nigerian ENDSARS protest led to that. So to a large extent, even though the government might not, want to assent to all the demands of the ENDSARS protest, it has, lent credence to the fact that young people, when they come together to, push for a great change, can achieve it because they have the numbers, they have the competence, they have the capacity, they have the character, not, minding some of the hard eggs that will also be there as well. So let me end it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw the passion you used in highlighting the points, and of course, you are right. Just like every other member of the panel have said, I've looked at the issues that came up and how far and how successful the ENDSARS protests has been. And I'm glad that you also talked about pictures being used to drive people to mobilize and all of that. Now, we've looked at the ENDSARS from both the perspective of government and that of the protesting citizens. For every action, there must be consequences. And so I will go to Dr. Udenze again and ask him. Yes, we saw in 2020, we saw a protest that led to deaths, either on the side of the law enforcement agencies, especially the police or Nigerians. Now, when all of this, the pains, the destruction, the death, the survivors, when they are captured in photographs, what exactly are they speaking to? Because you said in your opening session that photographs is about memories. Are these pictures speaking to the memories of the pains of the ENDSARS protests? Can you please give us some enlightenment on that, Mr. Udeze?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think one thing is clear. Pictures, of course, they say tell story than words. One thing I'll have to say is that the images so far from the ENDSARS, and mind you, they are still coming, because I remember I followed the ENDSARS protest anniversary for 3 years now. Last year, I was in Nigeria to conduct some interview in Lagos. I was also at the Lekki toll gate. One thing we have to say is that the images, first and foremost, I would say, shows the lack of democratic government in Nigeria. The ENDSARS was solely a very peaceful protest. The ENDSARS were law-abiding citizens. Right from Abuja, I could speak. When we pass any place in Abuja, especially at Banex Plaza, Unity Fountain, when we litter any place, we sweep that place and go ahead to the next place. It was totally free of any violence. People were joining. That is one factor. The ENDSARS itself, the pictures we're seeing, shows the lack of democratic government in Nigeria. Now, when people come out to protest without arms, without anything, and they are peaceful, we assume in a democratic dispensation that the police, the law agency, should protect the protesters because they are not destroying any properties. But during the ENDSARS, the reverse was the case. You ask yourself certain questions during the ENDSARS in Abuja. How come were people that are not of the same educational background, the same exposure, being highlighted from SUVs with government plated number chasing peaceful protesters? I have the images. So coming back to memory, the ENDSARS images, just as I'm still studying, shows the pain, what I describe in my thesis as implicit memory. What is implicit? Implicit is what you cannot control. The Nigerian situation has been so endemic. Poverty is the bane of most issues in Nigeria, youth unemployment. I find out that when I was talking to people during the ENDSARS, I realized that the ENDSARS is highly hydra-headed. It is not solely about police brutality. People talked about their inability to get jobs. People talked about poverty. People talked about, even policemen talked about being underpaid. So all these issues are not immediate. They are not immediate. Rather, they've been happening. So the image we're seeing, I would say they are two-sided. One from the government, showing that the government is, if I may use the word, irresponsible, very autocratic. Secondly, from the angle of the people, the protesters, it shows where we've been coming from. Like the image I analyze the ENDSARS, they are both retrospective and introspective. You can see images as far as some years pre-ENDSARS, 2016, 2017, where people are talking about poverty. Now, you can see images from the anniversary where people are still agitating, showing you that we still know where we are going to. So for sometimes they say the images, some of them are fake news. What is fake news? Government is trying to define fake news. As far as I'm concerned, it started with Donald Trump, fake news, and our government has bought that fake news. Who defines fake news? So I can see these images from two angles. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you said the images that were curated during the ENDSARS protests are speaking to a lot of things in Nigeria, and I agree with you up to an extent. But of course, there is a particular concept that I would like us to take a look at, and I'm going to speak to the sociologist among us, Dr. Leadi. I want to ask, during the ENDSARS protests, we saw police officers, especially men who are fathers and husbands, being killed. And the pictures, the videos were captured, where because somebody is a police man and is working for government, and then because the police have been brutalizing people, people too descended on them, killed and burnt. And we've not been talking about it. In your opinion, what would you say happened to our moral sensibility during that period? Dr.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me say that that is a very beautiful question. And I would like to also say that that is an angle that is hardly looked at when discussions, debates that surrounds ENDSARS is conducted or take place among scholars and commentators alike. And to be honest, it's an important angle that we actually need to talk about. If we talk about brutality of police, brutality by police people, we should also talk about the way citizens address, engage police people on the road or during this particular ENDSARS protest. I said the other time that there are many variables and factors that limited the success of ENDSARS. One of it, I must say, is overzealousness of the protesters. There were a lot. See, you were out there asking for your rights. For the society to allow you to breathe, to recognize that are so important aspects of us properly and respectively engaged by the way around is the way we also treat the police people. Forgetting that they are also members of the society. Of course, it is easy for us as a result of the spur of the movement, because when you have movement, when you have protest, it's a crowd thing. There'll be genuine protesters, and there'll be those who are there to foment trouble, or those who are hidden among the protesters to do things that will make government descend on the protester of the protest. If you understand that you have a goal to achieve, you must also be mindful of the fourth columnist, those who would not want a success of what you are engaging in. To brutalize police, of course, we all saw it. We were all, almost every Nigerian that has the little gadget called smartphone were on social media also. So we see how the protest went on. We also saw how some of the police people were also mishandled by the protesting youth or by some elements that were there to cause trouble. I traveled to, about 2-3 months ago, I traveled to Iseyin. And there I saw a police station that was burnt down. And I was informed that it was done during the ENDSARS protest and that some police people were killed during that time. Now, this takes me to, because I really don't believe that this is the end to it. Unless government changes its ways, youths may reorganize themselves and engage in another protest. But I would like to advocate for a responsible protest by the youth. Of course, protestation or demonstration is a universal activity. We remember recently when in the United States of America, people gathered to protest against the killing of, is it George? The man, let the black breathe or something like that.
Black Lives Matter.
Okay, thank you very much. Black Lives Matter. So it's a universal concept. Our society cannot be isolated from that. When people cannot be allowed to protest, then that society has not developed a civilized society. So we give it to the youth. It has to happen. But there must be responsibility. Protest responsibly. Police can be overzealous, but we cannot also be found within the realm of overzealousness. There must be a way by which the organization, those who have their own duty, some of them may be bad eggs, but we can lead them and expect the government of the day to be an onlooker. So to that extent, I would like to say that, yes, it has happened, but going forward, youth must organize themselves in such a way that they are responsible in whatever they are doing. I know that youthful exuberance can come in. We were youth once. I recall that in my undergraduate days, that was the day of Showore. We used to follow Showore from Unilag down to Oshodi and the rest. So it is, Yoruba people will say, Orita fi shewe, oku olorun. That means we are still the same, whether an old person as once being a youth. So we understand all this. But at the same time, there must be proper control of any social movement, any protest that require that youth want their voices to be heard. And I must say that I support that. I support that because without voicing out, then you are likely going to die in silence. But in doing it, we've got to be responsible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that contribution. We have to be responsible. Protests must be organized in a way that it would limit the level of destruction, and the focus should be clear. Now, I'm going to Dr. Adisa. The media is said to be the moral compass of the society. And what we saw during the ENDSARS protest, especially from private individuals who are taking pictures and putting it online, pictures of all sorts of things. I want to say, and I want to ask you, did the media do enough to actually warn the society, perhaps after the ENDSARS protest, of the consequence of losing moral sensibility in the society, especially looking at what went down during the protests. Dr. Adisa.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to believe that I want to talk about from that question I can see question about those who experience violence, the role of the media. Just that I always want us to demarcate the media we are talking about, because the traditional and social media, they play completely different roles. And if we have to examine their role, we blame the psychological trauma people went through, the lack of empathy that seems to be developing in the minds of youth, how we blame on the social media. Yes, we all agree that, well, I agree that ENDSARS is a necessity. The protest is a necessity and it is required. Because in a society where people complain and their complaints don't get any positive impact or change, then they have the right to take to the streets and express themselves. Yes, but when it comes to the role of media, well, I can say that traditional media played a better role. And they didn't just play this role naturally, they played it based on the dictates of the ownership. There is every possibility that if traditional media to have that kind of freedom that social media have, traditional media too will go haywire and dishing out traumatic pictures and other things. But when it comes to the amendment, as you ask, after the protest, when it comes to efforts being made to possibly cushion the effect of the protest on the citizens, well, we can say that traditional media play a great role, because on so many occasions they brought analysts to their stations to talk about effects of ENDSARS, to talk about the possible consequences of ENDSARS and the possible consequences of the picture we were exposed to. And when we talk about social media, I think that must be the double edge Mr. Muti is talking about. It's a double-edged thing. From traditional media, we have it cool, but from social media, it was all commerce affair, unprofessional, and a lot of traumatic content were displayed, continuously being displayed. But to say the media will continue to play their role, the role of trying to balance between getting people involved and at the same time try to do it professionally in order to prevent potential hazard of the kind of exposure they are given. So to me, social media still remains social media, a media that seems not to care about the feeling, the moral, and the possible traumatic experience that people can have. For instance, sorry to digress, I've stopped watching what is happening in Dhaka again, because there are so many things that I cannot already affecting my psychology. So I have to cut off from watching, from seeing what is happening. Same thing happened during the ENDSARS protest, and we can only blame the social media. Though social media too have a serious contribution to making people aware of happenings, adequately informed, that traditional media will not play. But media need to play more. They need to strike a balance between assiduous content and the need to get people informed. So media can always select the content. They can always present something within the context of positive development. And they can as well always consider the diversity of the audience, the age range of the audience. Empathy is also necessary to be imbued into the content of the media in order to at least reduce the overexposed citizens to violence, and which has made violence to mean nothing to the citizen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And by implication, what you are saying is we need extensive media literacy programs for youth, especially on the use of social media and what the effect could be on the mental health of the people. Now, because of the discussion, we had somebody join us from Nigeria here. Is Olusegun Akintunde. He's also a social commentator and was really affected because he lost one of his friends who was a police officer to that to the ENDSARS protest. If we paid attention while Mutiu was sharing a slide, there was a particular one where a woman was captured and the burnt remains of a police officer was shown. The particular person there was his friend. So I want to bring him on now to add to this conversation. We've talked about the ENDSARS, we've talked about the achievement, we've talked about the nature, and we've talked about the both intended and unintended consequences. Now, you saw how a friend was killed. How could you describe that experience? How was the experience for you, Mr. Olusegun Akintunde? Mr. Akintunde, are you with us?
Please unmute yourself.
Can you please raise your voice? We can't pick what you are saying.
I'm telling him to.
Hello?
Okay, yes. Mr.
Okay.
Akintunde, did you hear
Yes,
my...
sir. Yes, sir. Let me get back to you in a moment, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Mr. Dare Adeoye, I want to throw it to you as a development sector expert, as a development expert, as a key player in the NGO. We've been talking about how the pictures captured during the ENDSARS could demonstrate pains that people experience, especially during traumatic periods like that period. What could you say of what you saw on social media as far as the ENDSARS was concerned? Is Mr. Dio still with us? Oh, I think he has left. So
He's not
going
here.
to do that. Is he with us? Is he still with us?
He's not here.
He's not here. Okay. I'm going to throw that question to Mr. Abidin Olashupo. You've talked about how the protest was organized, you are part of it at a point and all of that. But I'm sure that you saw some of the gory pictures online. What could you make of it? Talking about the pains of others, looking at the fact that those people that lost their lives, the police officers, also belong to a particular family. They are husbands to wives, they are fathers to children, and they are Nigerians. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's emotional, and no protest is worth the life of any Nigerian. So, and having to kill ourselves in a peaceful protest is uncalled for. And of course, if I'm allowed a little bit to disagree with Dr. O.F. Liadi on the overzealousness of the protesters. I think, of course, it could be maybe the kind of protesters that you had access to. And that's why, on this call and conversation, I think my thoughts will be aligning almost perfectly with Dr. Zila Zudensi. The real protesters are not overzealous. The real protester knows the demand. The real protesters are educated like me. The real protesters knows exactly why they are going on streets. And of course, the same way I'm going to blame protesters for attacking the Nigerian police is the same way I'm still going to blame the Nigerian police force for allowing themselves to be used as a tool to attack the protesters as well. We have in different states where, the protesters got attacked protesting peacefully. So to just answer in clear terms to Dr. Rashid Abdebi's question, sincerely, no protest is worth the life of anybody. I see no reason why, we need to attack police station. I see no reason why we need to attack the police officer. I see no reason why, the police officers should also attack the citizens. So it's something that I think, of course, we need to change in the rhetoric of the way we make our demands. We could make demands without killing. We could make demands without, losing lives, and we could make, demands in a very legitimate way that will stand the test of time and also allow us to drive home the key points that we are trying to do. And that's why I'm also giving it to you, Dr. Rashid, and your colleague or your friend, Mr. Mutiu, as well. When we do a data-driven protest, when we get to a point where, before we do a protest, we work with available data to say these are the issues in a simple infographics, which brings us to pictures again. Much more people will be enlightened, especially, the so-called Generation Z, who form bulk of the protesters, and much more citizens will know what the demands are and will be able to place demands before, those in the position of authority. The reason why majority of our challenges are like this is because, most of these engagements, most of these protests, most of these work and activities are not always data driven. So that's why, of course, on that note as well, I will also be pushing for, data driven protests that will make people to understand what the real issues are and what the real demands looks like. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But you said something in the course of your submission. You said the police shouldn't have allowed themselves to be used to attack protesters. Well, the police, when we are trying to place it in proper context, we are actually doing their duties, and so it is obey the last command, some sort of. So, and I don't think it is only limited to Nigerian police. I've seen a lot of protests. Even from the West, where police had to come in and then mishandle people. So I think it's a general theme that is common among police force around the world. Those whose role is to keep the law. Now, Mr. Udeze, we've seen the destructions that accompany the ENDSARS protests. You have also said in your submission that the pictures that we have are illustrating a lot of things, including pains, memories, and loss, and all of that. Could there be other creative ways of expressing dissent, of expressing dissatisfaction, especially by the Gen Z, by the youth now, especially and with the use of the social media?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. When you say creative way, of course, I would like to start by saying that protest or social movement or activism is not devoid of losses. We could take from the Arab Spring and how the Arab Spring started and ended, how Bouazizi burned himself. We could move to Tahrir Square in Egypt. How many people died in Tahrir Square in Egypt? We could talk about the Indignato M15 in Spain. How many people were killed? We could talk about the Parisian movement in France, where Didier Fassin, he did a work on protest on Black people in France. And the thing there is that a creative way to go about protests, I wouldn't say there is cut out creative way to go about protests. But what I'll have to say is one thing. Movement has been shown to, most movements around the world, especially even in the 70s and 80s, according to literature, have been shown to be so episodic. What does it mean to be episodic? It's full of fanfare, street demonstration. Now, this episodic nature of movement, to some extent and to a great extent, I would say, drives the 24 hours news cycle. Now, what we go in the streets to do is to protest. Now, we know why we're protesting, but again, we, the protester, are feeding the 24 hours newsreel. Because, for instance, channels television, AIT, those national TVs in Nigeria wouldn't just come to Lekki Toll Gate or come to the Uni Fountain in Abuja and just see people standing. They will want to see actions, demonstration, which they will finally invariably use to sell their product. So there is no, I wouldn't say there is straight cut out way for a creative protest, but what I would say is that, like some of my respondents said, that the ENDSARS anniversaries, the ENDSARS is not dead. It's a process. Few days ago, there's this professor from Texas A&M University from that visited Nigeria, Professor Okediji. He was nearly mobbed by police in Lagos. They stole $500 from him, but it was some youths at the motor park in Lagos that saved him, formed a wall against him and said these policemen are not going to take anything from him, that he nearly lost his life just 2 days ago. So coming back to the ENDSARS, we could be creative in the use of the anniversary. The anniversary is a lens of a protest. It's a lens, it's a memory of a protest also. Memorialization is a protest on its own. So I believe the youth are being creative. Creativity also comes to social media. When it started in 2016 or 2017, the ENDSARS, the hashtag ENDSARS, if you pull up the hashtag in Twitter now, in as much as it is difficult to access the API in Twitter now, if you pull it down, you can imagine the number of hashtags you find. These are creativity. Lives were lost. Of course, no life is worth losing when it comes to protest. Life is very precious. But what I would say is that the forming creativity has to come from both the side of the government and the protesters. The government have to be patient with protesters, listen to them. For instance, the president coming up after they saw that the heat was too much and said, we've reformed SARS to SWAT. It is nothing to do with reform of SARS, because those are men that will just change their SARS clothes to SWAT. And the government coming to shut down Twitter at the end of the day, reopening Twitter, because they've seen the power of Twitter in both the hand of the youth and the government. So in my submission, I don't think there's any creative way we could go about it, but both sides have to come to terms on how to agree if there are some issues in the society.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you all the panelists for your time. It's been interesting driving the conversation. We have just about 5 minutes or thereabout left. And I want to throw the floor quickly to members of the class who are on the meeting, on the call: Vasilia, Anna, Maria K, Maria L. Anyone, what do you have to, what could you make of the conversation that we have had so far, especially concerning the visual images generated from the ENDSARS protests in Nigeria in 2020? Anybody willing to put in 1 or 2 words? Oh, I guess I didn't see. Okay, if you want to do that, can you indicate by virtually raising your hand? Okay, at this junction, we are going to call it a day. We've talked about ENDSARS, the images generated, the memories, and okay. So Anna says she joined 10 minutes ago, so probably she doesn't have any comment. It's all right, it's fine. Oh, okay, Mr. Odenze.
Yes, just to talk a little more about the paper and what Michu intends to do. I think I sent you about 2 documents. One is on visual thematic analysis by Therese Heng. It's a very good material on images and how to use images for research. And the other one, it's about information power and qualitative research. I think they're going to go a long way in actually helping you. And if you need more of something related to that, I can, as always, send them to you.
Professor, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. On this note, I'm going to call on the organizer, Mutsuyo Yoda, to do the vote of thanks as we are closing the discussion.
Thank you very much for all your comments. And I want to start my vote of thanks from my professor, Professor Panos, for giving me the opportunities to organize this event and also the opportunity to learn from him so far since I have my opportunity to come to Moscow, Nigeria. I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity from you, sir, and the entire department as well. And I also want to thank every discussant from Nigeria and my brother who is also a youth leader as well as the director of one of the most promising NGO in Nigeria, Mr. Bidi Olasupo, as well as my brother in Spain for coming and share his experience with us here. And I also want to thank all my colleagues in my department, my program as well. Thank you for coming, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you all. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I want to thank Professor Pan for his patience. He has been here before we started and he sat all through. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the panelists. Do have a wonderful night rest. But before we go, can we please switch on our camera so that Mutiu can take the picture? Let us switch on our camera so that Mutiu can take the picture. Oh, have you done that?
Not yet, not yet.
All right.
All right. Great. Done.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for the discussion. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Mr. Silas. Thank you.
Bye-bye.